Hello, Miss Anderson's class. I'm sorry I cannot be here with you guys today, but I wanted us to go back to our last project since I am not here today because you guys missed out on one thing for our Mars or our space colony project, and that was the full Tinkercad day where everyone just gets to build on Tinkercad. So our goal today is to use our plans, get into Tinkercad, and build. My video is just going to go over some build tricks for you guys. I want you guys to build the colonies that you made in your blueprint, and then I want you to add on to them, make them as detailed as you want or as you have time for in class. If you continue to do it after class, that's fine too. I would love to see your colony when I come back from my trip. Taking a look here. So now that you have made your perimeter and your area, you are going to be taking these 4 required buildings and anything else that you can fit into Tinkercad. Your Tinkercad colony, you want to maybe mark in the name of it, like I'll show you in just a minute, where you decided to build your colony. If you decided the moon or Mars, again, we crossed out Venus. It's just too hot there. And then make sure that you have all required areas before you build any of the extra places. So to get there, or actually I'll just get started in Tinkercad here. And I'm going to move my little person block. There we go. That way you guys can see all of the different blocks I'm going to use. So right here, I already have my housing. The next one that I'm going to do is my research. And because I did my perimeter and my area, I know that my research facility is 4 squares by 8 squares. Now in Tinkercad, each one of these squares is actually 10. So instead of it saying 4 by 8, it's going to say 40 by 80. So all I'm going to do to start is I'm going to drag this block out. And it's kind of hard to see at this angle exactly how big my block is. But if I hover my mouse over it, and I'm going to use this to make that small. If I hover my mouse over each section, I can see that this one is 2 squares big, which means it's 10 plus 10, 20, and 20 by 20. So if I want to make this 40 by 80, I can either click and drag this out. So now I'm at 3 squares, 4 squares, 5 squares, 6 squares, 7 squares. I'm going to go all the way to 8 squares. There we go. And then I'm going to drag this one out just 2 more squares, so I'm at 40. All right, so that's one way you might edit your building shape. Now I'm going to leave it at that. That's going to be my research facility. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. All right, the next one I'm going to do is my farm. My farm was 7 by 5, which means it's going to be in Tinkercad 70 by 50. And now this one's going to be my farm. When I bring it out, before I make it big, I'm going to make it a different color. Just to help me remember that this is my farm. So I want this to be dirt color. You can, again, make yours. Maybe your farm is going to be in a big dome or a building, or maybe it is just going to be soil. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to change my angle here so we can really see the blocks for this. And actually, I want to focus on this shape. So if I click on a shape and then I use this tool right here, it lets me zoom in and focus. This really helps in Tinkercad because there's so many different ways to change a shape. Zooming in really lets you see which shape you're using. So this one right here on top of my block lets me lower my block. So I want it to be pretty low. That's where everything's going to get planted. Now I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And I'm going to show you a different way to enter your numbers. So right now it's a 2 by 2 or 20 by 20. I want to make it 7 by 5, so 70 by 50. So I'm going to click on my square, and then that makes this number stay. If I want this number to be 50, I can type it in and click enter, boop, and it makes it 50, rather than me having to drag it out and be so precise. All right, now I'm going to do it the other way. I want this length, so I'm going to click the square, and then I'm going to click my number, and I'm going to type 70, enter. That is my farm space right there. And again, I'm going to come back to this and get more detailed in just a minute. I'm going to click back to home so that I'm focused. So I've got my housing, my research facility, my farm, and then over here is going to be my water and air storage. Let's see. I'm going to go for a unique shape this time. I don't mind if your buildings are not perfect squares in Tinkercad. On our plan, we needed them to be perfect squares because that is how we have learned to do area and perimeter, is with the square shape. As long as this is about the same as your square, it's okay if you don't use a perfect square shape in Tinkercad, because I want your buildings to be as unique as you imagine them to be. This is a space colony. So I'm going to do that same thing though. So if I want this length will be 70. So I'm going to click on the box, click over here and type 70, enter. And it changes my shape a whole lot because it's not a square. And then the other way, whoop, zoom out a little bit. This length right here, I want this to be 30. There we go. So 70 by 30, and now I can kind of click and drag and move it where I want it to go. Now this is just the basics of it, right? We've got our things plotted out, but now we can make it more interesting. So for example, let me take a look at my research facility. You guys can already see I decked out my housing with a roof and some doors. So I wanted to show you guys just a couple of tricks that you guys can do. For example, I'm going to make this square a little bit less tall and a little bit smaller. Actually, I'm gonna bring it over here, use that focus tool, and I'm gonna drag this out. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to make this hollow and put a window all the way through my research facility. Again, this is just like an extra thing you can do. You don't have to do this. All right, so right now, if I take a look, my window would be as low as my floor is, and I want to raise it up in space. So if I look at my shape, there is one tool that I haven't shown yet. I've shown my black side blocks that can change the size and shape, how tall it is. But one I haven't showed yet is this little cone. This cone raises things up in space. And notice, while it's raising up in space, there is a shadow underneath it. That's going to help you know where it is located. So I'm going to put this inside of my research facility like that. I'm going to lower it down just a smidge. Yep, just like that. And then I'm going to make it into a hole. So right now, it is a solid object. It's right here, solid. Right here is how I make it into a hole. All right, now it's not a hole in that object until I group it. Now I need to select, actually, hold on, I'm going to duplicate it first. Duplicate, Control D, move it over because maybe I want two windows in my research facility. Let's see, I want to make sure that my window is coming through on both sides. So I'm going to use my view cube. I'm going to click on my research facility and I'm going to center it, zoom out a little, kind of play with my angle to make sure I've got my windows where I want them to be. Oh, a little bit over, a little bit over. All right, now when I have them placed exactly where I want them, I'm going to select, ooh, that wasn't a good select. Let's see, I want to make sure I get all of the three shapes. I want the building and the two windows in together. And then I'm going to go up to this button right here. This is the group button, group. And now I have windows in my research facility. So I will be able to see, like you can see the dirt through here. That makes a hole all the way through. All right, now maybe I'm going to go over here to my water and air storage and add some details like a roof. Let's add this as my roof here. So again, I'm going to center on the shape, zoom out a little bit so I can kind of see what I'm doing. And I know that my building was 70 long, so I want this to also be 70 because that way I know it's going to fit on top of my house. And again, I also want it to be as wide. So thankfully I counted all those numbers and wrote them down on my paper. Boop. From here, I'm gonna drag it underneath, and then I'm gonna use that little cone and drag it up. There we go. So now my water and air storage has a little bit of a roof, but notice, oh, I didn't drag it far enough. So that's why it's so important. Use your view cube, hop back to house mode or home mode, and use your view cube to kind of get different angles so that you can drag it to the spot that you want. Once you get it where you think you want it, do it again. Drag from different angles Make sure it is exactly where you want it to be. All right, back to home. All right, and then from here, so I would add a whole lot more things, right? I could add a door. I might add plants that are growing. Let me show you guys this tool. So this is the scribble tool, and it's really neat. So let's say I wanted to build some plants here. I want my plant, let's see here. Let's say I wanted to grow some corn. Here's like the flowery part of my corn, and then here's the corn part of my corn with some different little dots on it. That's the corn part. That's the good stuff. All right, so let's say this is my corn. All right, now looking at how it's gonna look, whoa, that's way too huge, but that's okay. You can change that after you render it. So once you're done drawing something with the scribble tool, you gotta click done in the corner. Wow, that's way too huge for my corn, but hey, that's okay. I'm going to show you guys some cool things with the rotate. So first off, let's make it smaller. I'm going to grab one of the corners and I'm just going to drag it down. I still want to keep that corn shape. And then here, I'm going to drag it off this platform so we can really get close up to it. Because the rotating, I think, is the trickiest tool to use. So since we're building in 3D here, there are 3 ways to rotate it. You can rotate it side to side, you can rotate it around, or you can rotate it to flip. So the 3 different rotate options will pop up a little dial. You got to click it and drag it along that dial. All right, so I can rotate it this way. This is how I will want my corn standing up. I could rotate it side to side as well. Sometimes you got to rotate it 2 ways to get it the way that you want it. All right, and also corn is not thick like this, so I'm going to also make it a lot thinner. There we go. And then maybe I'll change it to be green. That way it looks like a plant. There we go. All right, now I'm going to drag it onto my field. Maybe raise it up a little bit above my dirt. All right, let me go back to home and focus down. And now I can Control D and move it. Control D, Control D. There we go. So that's my row of corn. So you guys, I know this was a little bit of a long video. I hope this helped you guys see what kind of tools that you can use. I want you to spend the whole class today, make your whole colony. Oh, one more trick, because look how small my building platform is. It is so small. It is smaller than the area that I gave you to build. So if you have a plan that uses a lot of the edges and you need that middle space, here is how you increase the size of your grid. Down here in the corner, there's a button that says Edit Grid. And instead of it saying 200 by 200, you want it to match this. I believe that is supposed to be 300 by 200. There we go. So that will match the rectangular grid that I gave you. Make sure you don't make it too big. It gets really hard to see the pieces that you're working with. But about a 300 by 200 grid should be enough for you to build your whole colony. I wish you guys luck. If you need any of the slides for this project, just remember that they are in the STEM 4th grade classwork section. You have to go down to the Tinkercad lessons section. When you click that, it has the resources that I gave you here, including the slides. I wish you guys luck, have fun with it, and I will see you guys next week to continue our bobsled build. Bye!